The alarm screamed through the cargo ship like a dying animal. Red lights flashed in every corridor of the Meridian Dawn, turning everything into a nightmare of shadows and blood-colored warnings. Taman grabbed the wall as the floor tilted sideways. He had worked in a warehouse for 6 years, moving boxes and organizing shipments. Nothing in his life had prepared him for this moment. Everyone to the escape pods, the captain's voice cracked through the speakers, barely audible over the grinding metal sounds coming from deep inside the ship. "This is not a drill." "Repeat, this is not a drill." Taman ran. His legs felt like rubber, but he ran anyway. Around him, other passengers stumbled through the tilting corridors. An older man fell and Taman stopped to help him up. The man's face was pale, his hands shaking. "Thank you," the man gasped. His name tag said Kangman. "I'm too old for this." "Nobody's old enough for this," Taman said, pulling him forward. They reached the escape pod bay just as another explosion rocked the ship. Taman saw a woman with her hands pressed against her face, breathing too fast. Her eyes were wild with panic. Another woman, younger, was trying to calm her down. "Bora, please, we have to move," the younger woman said. "I can't, Nari, I can't breathe. We're going to die," Bora said, her voice high and tight. Taman pushed them both toward the nearest pod. "Get in now." More people rushed into the bay. A man in glasses stumbled past, muttering something about fictional spaceships never exploding this fast. A woman in a chef's uniform stood frozen, staring at the pods like they were coffins. A middle-aged man in business clothes was helping people into the pods, organizing them even in the chaos. 4 people per pod, the businessman shouted. His name was Hyun. "Don't overload them." Taman counted quickly. 7 people, including himself, 2 pods. They split up, 4 in one pod, 3 in another. Taman ended up in the smaller pod with Bora and Nari. The door sealed with a hiss that sounded too final. Through the small window, Taman watched the other pod launch. Then theirs shook violently as it separated from the dying ship. The last thing he saw was the Meridian Dawn breaking apart, pieces spinning away into the black void of space. The escape pod's computer spoke in a calm, emotionless voice. "Scanning for habitable worlds. Scan complete. 1 candidate located. Beginning atmospheric entry." "Wait," Nari said. "We didn't choose where to go?" "Automatic survival protocol," the computer said. "Manual override not available during emergency launch." Bora made a sound like a wounded animal. Taman wanted to comfort her, but he didn't know how. He had never been good with emotions. He was good with organizing things, with systems and processes, but there was no process for falling through space toward an unknown planet. The pod began to shake. Then it began to burn. Through the window, Taman saw fire, bright orange and yellow flames licking across the hull. The computer kept talking in that calm voice, listing altitude and velocity like it was reading a grocery list. Hull temperature critical. Adjusting angle. "Impact in 90 seconds. Impact?" Bora screamed. "You mean crash?" The shaking got worse. Taman's teeth rattled in his skull. He tried to remember if he had told his mother he loved her the last time they talked. He couldn't remember. That seemed important now. 60 seconds. The flames outside turned from orange to blue to white. 40 seconds. Through the window, Taman saw purple. Not the purple of space, but the purple of sky. They were inside an atmosphere. 20 seconds. Trees. He saw trees rushing up toward them, but they were the wrong color. Dark blue with bioluminescent spots that glowed like tiny stars. 10 seconds. Taman closed his eyes. The impact threw him against his restraint so hard he thought his ribs would crack. The world became sound and fury and pain. Metal screamed. Something exploded. The pod rolled and rolled and rolled. Then stopped. Silence. Taman's ears rang. His mouth tasted like copper. He opened his eyes and saw purple sky through a cracked window. "Is everyone alive?" he managed to ask. "I think so," Nari said. Her voice shook. "Bora? Bora, are you okay?" Bora didn't answer. She just stared straight ahead, breathing in shallow gasps. Taman unbuckled his restraints and tried the door. It opened with a groan of twisted metal. He stumbled out onto alien ground. The grass, if it was grass, was silver and moved on its own, even though there was no wind. The air smelled wrong, like old pennies mixed with something sweet and rotten. He heard voices and turned. The other pod had landed about 50 meters away. 4 people climbed out, moving like they heard everywhere. Taman recognized Hyun, the businessman who had been organizing people. There was Kang Min, the old man he had helped. A woman in a chef's uniform, Minji, he heard someone call her. And the man in glasses, Do-yeon. Everyone okay? Hyun called out. Define okay, Do-yeon said, pushing his glasses up. One lens was cracked. We crashed on an alien planet. The ship is gone. We have no way to call for help. But yeah, we're breathing. Minji sat down on the silver grass and started crying. I just wanted to open a bakery on Titan, she said. I saved for 5 years. This was supposed to be my new beginning. Kangmin patted her shoulder awkwardly. Could be worse. How? Minji asked. We could be dead, Kangmin said simply. Taemin helped Bora and Nari out of their pod. Bora's legs gave out and she sat down hard on the ground. Nari crouched beside her, holding her hand. The 7 of them stood in a rough circle, looking at each other. Taemin studied their faces. None of them looked like survivors. None of them looked like heroes. They looked like ordinary people who had been in the wrong place at the worst time. So, Hyun said, breaking the silence, anyone here have survival training? Military experience? Camping skills? Nobody spoke. Anyone? Hyun tried again. I watched a lot of shows about space, Do-yeon offered weakly. Does that count? No, Hyun said. No, that doesn't count. Taemin looked at the damaged pods, then at the strange forest surrounding them, then at the purple sky above. The sun, or whatever this planet's star was called, was starting to set. The light was fading and the bioluminescent spots on the trees were getting brighter. We need to take inventory, Taemin heard himself say.
Check what supplies we have.
Set up some kind of shelter before dark. Everyone turned to look at him. He wasn't sure why he had spoken. He wasn't a leader. He was just a warehouse worker, but Hyun nodded. Good, okay, let's do that. Everyone, check your pods. Bring out everything useful. As they moved to follow the order, Taemin noticed something that made his stomach turn cold. In the distance beyond the trees, something howled. It was not a sound any earth animal made. It was higher stranger, like metal scraping against glass. Another howl answered the first, then another. They were surrounded by sounds they didn't understand, on a world they didn't know, with no experience and no plan. Taemin looked at his hands. They were shaking. He made them into fists and went to help sort through the supplies. He didn't know what else to do, so he did what he knew. He organized. He made lists in his head. Food, water, medical supplies, tools, systems, and processes. That was something he understood, even if nothing else made sense anymore. The first night was the longest night of Taemin's life. They huddled inside the least damaged pod. 7 people crammed into a space meant for 4. The howling outside never stopped. Sometimes it sounded close, sometimes far away, but it was always there, reminding them they were not alone on this world. Bora sat in the corner, her arms wrapped around her knees. She had not spoken since the sun went down. Nari stayed close to her, whispering things Taemin could not hear. Minji kept checking her watch every few minutes, like knowing the time would somehow help. Kangmin told quiet stories about his grandchildren to anyone who would listen. Hyun organized and reorganized their supplies, counting the same ration bars over and over. Do-yeon stared out the cracked window, his broken glasses balanced on his nose. There's something out there, Do-yeon said suddenly. I saw movement. Everyone froze. Taemin crawled to the window and looked out. In the darkness, the bioluminescent spots on the trees created a strange, ghostly light. At first he saw nothing. Then he saw them, shapes moving between the trees. Low to the ground, too many legs, eyes that reflected light like mirrors. What are they? Minji whispered. I don't know, Taemin said. But they're not coming closer. Why not? Hyun asked. Taemin looked at the pod's exterior lights. They were still on, running off the emergency battery. Weak, but bright enough to create a circle of light around the pod. The light, he said. I think they don't like the light. Do-yeon laughed, but it was not a happy sound. I saw this in a movie once. The monsters always avoid light. This isn't a movie, Bora said. Her voice was flat, empty. In movies, people get rescued. In movies, the heroes know what to do. Then we figure it out, Nari said. She was young, maybe 24, but her voice was steady. We're not heroes, but we're alive. That counts for something. The shapes outside circled for another hour, then faded back into the forest. By the time the purple sun rose, everyone was exhausted. They had not slept, just sat in frightened silence, jumping at every sound. Morning brought new problems. They gathered outside the pods to take stock of what they had. 3 days of water in sealed containers, 5 days of ration bars, 1 medical kit with bandages, antiseptic, and some basic medicine. A survival manual that Hyun flipped through with growing despair. "This is useless," he said, throwing the manual down. "It's written for people stranded on human colonies. It tells you how to signal rescue ships and where to find the nearest settlement. It doesn't tell you how to survive on an alien planet." "What about water?" Kang-min asked. "We only have 3 days' worth." Taemin pointed to a body of water about 100 meters away. They had landed near what looked like a small lake or pond. "There's water, but we don't know if it's safe," Hyun finished. They walked to the water together. It was not clear like earth water. It was milky white and made a faint fizzing sound like soda. Small bubbles rose to the surface and popped. Minji knelt down and sniffed it. "Smells weird," she said. "Kind of metallic." "We can't drink this," Bora said. "It could be poison." "We can't not drink it," Doyen pointed out. "In 3 days we'll be out of water. Then we die anyway." Nari stared at the fizzing water. "In chemistry class, we learned that boiling water kills most harmful things. I mean, that's for earth water, but it's something," Taemin said. "Can we boil it?" They went back to the pod. Doyun, who knew about electronics, showed them how to remove a heating element from the pod's damaged coffee maker. It still worked. They rigged it up to the battery and heated a small container of the alien water. As it boiled, the fizzing stopped. The milky white color faded. After 10 minutes, the water looked almost normal, slightly purple, but clear. "Who's testing it?" Hyun asked. Everyone looked at each other. Finally, Kangmin stepped forward. "I'm the oldest. If it kills me, that's better than killing someone young." "That's not," Nari started. "It's practical," Kangmin said. He took a small sip of the cooled water. Then he waited. They all waited. 5 minutes, 10, 15. "I feel fine," Kangmin said. "My stomach isn't hurting. I'm not dizzy." "Drink a little more," Hyun suggested. "Small amounts first." Kangmin took another sip. Still nothing happened. After an hour, he drank a full cup. By afternoon, he was still alive and healthy. They had solved the water problem. Food was harder. The ration bars would run out. They needed to find something to eat on this planet. But every plant looked alien and potentially deadly. The silver grass, the dark blue trees, strange purple fruits hanging from twisted vines. All of it could be food or poison. "We can't just guess," Bora said. She had found her voice again, and with it, some of her courage. "We need a system. We test small amounts, we wait, we document reactions. That could take weeks," Hyun said. "We'll starve before we find safe food." Minji, who had been quiet, suddenly spoke up. "What if we watch the animals? See what they eat?" Everyone turned to look at her. She shrugged. "I'm a chef, I know food. On Earth, people learned what was safe to eat by watching animals. If an animal can eat it and live, usually humans can too. Maybe it works here." It was not a perfect plan, but it was better than random guessing. They spent the next day observing the forest. They saw small 6-legged creatures, furry and quick, eating purple berries from low bushes. They saw larger animals with too many eyes grazing on the silver grass. They saw flying things with transparent wings drinking nectar from red flowers. "The berries," Taemin said. "Multiple animals eat those berries. That's our best bet." Hyun volunteered to test them. He ate 1 small berry, just 1. Then they waited for hours. Nothing happened. The next day he ate 3 berries. Still nothing. By the 3rd day he ate a handful and pronounced them sweet but sour, kind of like a raspberry mixed with a lemon. They had food. Not much, not enough, but it was a start. The shelter problem was more complex. The pods were damaged and cramped. They needed real shelter. Taemin looked at the pods with his warehouse eyes. eyes trained to see how things fit together, how they could be moved and reorganized. "We can take them apart," he said. "Use the metal panels as walls and roofs." "Take apart our only shelter?" Bora asked, her anxiety creeping back into her voice. "To build better shelter," Taemin said. "We set up an assembly line. Doyun disconnects the panels. Kangmin and Hyun move them. Minji and Nari collect branches and vines from the forest to use as supports. Bora, you read that medical manual and learn everything in it in case someone gets hurt." "You want me to be the doctor?" Bora asked, eyes wide. "You're detail-oriented," Taemin said. "You'll remember things the rest of us miss. That's important." For the first time since the crash, Bora almost smiled. Having a job, a purpose, seemed to calm her. They worked for 2 days. It was hard work. The gravity on this planet was stronger than Earth's, and they got tired quickly. Hyun pulled a muscle in his back. Nari scraped her hands raw, but slowly a structure took shape. It was ugly and crude, but it had walls and a roof. It was bigger than the pods and more comfortable. On the 5th night, they sat in their new shelter and ate boiled alien berries mixed with the last of their ration bars. The meal was strange but filling. The howling creatures still circled in the darkness, but they had learned the light kept them away. Doyun had rigged up the exterior lights on a timer to conserve battery power. "We're going to survive this," Nari said quietly. "Maybe," Hyun said. "But we need to do more than survive. We need to figure out how to live here." Kangmin nodded. "We need to accept that rescue might not come. This might be home now." The word home hung in the air. None of them wanted to accept it, but they all knew it was true. They were too far from any known human colony. The ship was destroyed. Even if they could send a signal, help might take years to arrive. "Then we make it home," Taemin said. "We learn this place. We adapt." Minji looked around at the crude shelter, at their meager supplies, at the 6 other scared people sitting in the alien darkness. "We don't know anything about surviving in the wild. None of us do." "No," Doyun said, pushing his broken glasses up. "But we know other things. Taemin knows organizing. Bora knows details. Hyun knows managing people. Nari knows creativity. Minji knows food. Kangmin knows life. I know. Well, I know random stuff from shows and books." "That's not enough," Bora whispered. "It's what we have," Taemin said. "So we make it enough." Outside, something howled. But inside the shelter, 7 ordinary people sat together and began to believe just a little bit that they might actually survive this impossible situation. Not because they were special, but because they refused to give up. Because humans were good at one thing above all else. They were good at adapting. 2 weeks passed. The camp had changed from a desperate crash site into something that almost looked organized. Taemin had mapped out a simple system: sleeping area, food preparation area, water collection area. It reminded him of his warehouse, just with alien trees instead of storage racks. The routine helped. Wake up, collect water, gather berries, improve the shelter, sleep, repeat. The routine kept them sane, but they were still trapped in a small safe zone around their camp. They needed to explore. They needed to know what else was out there. "I'll go," Nari said at breakfast. She had become braver over the past 2 weeks. Less afraid. "I want to see more of this place." "Not alone," Taemin said. "I'll go with you. And one more person." "I'll go," Doyun volunteered. "I've been dying to see what's out there. Plus, I have all this useless knowledge about fictional alien worlds. Maybe some of it is actually useful." Bora looked worried. "What if something happens? What if you don't come back?" "Then you have Hyun, Minji, and Kangmin," Taemin said. 3 smart people who can keep things running. We'll be back before dark. Promise." They left at sunrise when the purple sun made everything look painted in watercolors. They walked slowly, carefully, watching for danger. The forest was thick with strange vegetation. Trees with spiral bark. Plants that moved when you got close. Flowers that actually hummed, making soft musical sounds. After an hour of walking, they found something impossible. Ruins. Old buildings, broken and covered in vines but clearly artificial. Clearly built by intelligent creatures. Someone lived here, Nari whispered. This planet had a civilization. They explored carefully. The buildings were empty, long abandoned. Strange symbols covered the walls, a language they could not read. But in one building they found something useful. Clay pots, intact and well-made. They could use these for water storage. Look at this, Doyen called from another room. He stood in front of a wall covered in carved images. The images showed tall, thin creatures with 4 arms. They showed cities and farms, and they showed something else. Large predators attacking the cities. The final image showed the thin creatures leaving in ships. They ran away, Taman said. Something drove them off this planet. Great, Nari said. That makes me feel so much safer. They continued exploring and found a cave system behind the ruins. Inside the caves, the walls glowed with veins of luminescent minerals. Blue, green, orange, the light was beautiful and strange. Doyen broke off a small piece of the glowing rock. This stuff might be useful, he said. If it glows naturally, maybe we can use it for light, save battery power. As they left the cave, Nari froze. Don't move, she whispered. Taman saw it. A creature stood between them and the path home. It was massive, maybe the size of a bear, with dark purple fur and crystalline spines running down its back. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern on its head. And claws, long curved claws that left gouges in the ground. The creature saw them. It made a low rumbling sound and took a step forward. Back away slowly, Taman said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. Don't run! Don't! The creature charged. Doyen acted without thinking. He grabbed the glowing mineral from his pocket and threw it at the creature. The rock tumbled through the air, blazing with blue light. The creature stopped mid-charge. Its 4 eyes locked onto the glowing rock. It seemed confused, mesmerized. Run! Doyen shouted. They ran. Behind them, they heard the creature making confused sounds, but it did not chase them. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs felt like water, and then they ran some more. They did not stop until they reached camp. Everyone rushed over as they collapsed, gasping for air. Taman explained what happened between breaths. Hyun and Kangman listened with worried faces. Minji brought them water. Bora checked them for injuries with hands that shook slightly. The light stopped it, Doyen said, still clutching the piece of glowing mineral. The creature was attracted to it, or confused by it. I don't know which. Like the howling things the first night, Nari said. They stayed away from our pod lights. Light matters here, Taman said. Different colors, different frequencies. The animals react to them. This discovery changed everything. Over the next few days, they experimented. They placed glowing minerals around the camp perimeter. They mixed different colors. They learned that blue light kept the howling creatures away. Orange light attracted the small 6-legged animals. Red light did nothing. Green light made some creatures curious but not aggressive. It's like a language, Bora said, writing everything down in her notebook. Light is how we communicate with this planet's animals. Meanwhile, Minji had been running experiments of her own. She had been trying to preserve food, to make their berry supply last longer. She knew that fermentation worked on Earth. Bacteria broke down food slowly, preserving it and making it safe. But would Earth bacteria work on alien food? She took a risk. She scraped bacteria from their hands, their own human gut bacteria that lived on their skin. She mixed it with crushed berries and water in a sealed clay pot from the ruins. Then she waited. 3 days later, she opened the pot carefully. The smell was strong, sour, and fermented. It looked disgusting. But she had seen this before in her kitchen back on Earth. This was fermentation. She tasted a tiny amount. Then waited. Hours passed. Nothing bad happened. The next day, she ate more. Still fine. It works, she announced at dinner. We can preserve food now. It won't be delicious, but it won't spoil, and it's safe to eat. You tested potentially poisonous alien food on yourself? Bora asked, horrified. Minji shrugged. I'm a chef. Understanding food is what I do. I took a calculated risk. That was stupid, Bora said. That was brave, Kangmin corrected gently. While Minji worked on food, Hyun and Kangmin had built a rainwater collection system. They had noticed that it rained almost every 3 days on this planet, brief but heavy storms. They could not waste that water. Using torn fabric from their clothes and the pod's old air filters, they created a collection system that funneled rainwater into the clay pots. After the next storm, they collected enough water to last a week. Bora had memorized the medical manual and was teaching herself first aid. She had organized the medical supplies obsessively, knowing exactly what they had and where it was. When Nari cut her hand on sharp rock, Bora cleaned and bandaged it perfectly, talking through each step to calm both Nari and herself. You're good at this, Nari told her. I'm just following instructions, Bora said, but she looked pleased. One evening, as the purple sun set, Bora did something else. She had been watching the stars every night, and she had been making careful notes. Now she called everyone together. I've been mapping the stars, she said, matching them to what I remember from the navigation charts on the ship. It's not perfect, but I think I know where we are. She drew a crude map in the dirt. We're here. The nearest human colony is here. The distance between the 2 points was enormous. About 47 light-years away. Silence fell over the group. 47 light-years. Even at faster-than-light speeds, a rescue mission would take months to organize, months to travel. Years, possibly. So we're on our own, Minji said quietly. We've been on our own since we crashed, Hyun replied. But now we know for sure. Now we can plan accordingly. That night, Hyun called a meeting. They sat in a circle in their shelter, the glowing minerals providing soft light. Outside, the night creatures made their sounds, but the camp was safe behind its light barriers. We need to make a decision, Hyun said. We can sit here and wait for a rescue that might never come. Or we can commit to building a life here, really commit. Not just surviving day to day, but making this place home. I vote we commit, Nari said immediately. Waiting feels like giving up. Agreed, Doyen said. Besides, even if rescue comes, it could be years. We might as well live well while we wait. I'm in, Minji said. I wanted to build something new. This wasn't the plan, but it's still something new. Kangmin nodded. I'm old. I don't have years to waste waiting. Let's live. Everyone looked at Bora. She sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. Finally, she spoke. Back on Earth, I hated my life. Every day was the same. Work, home, sleep, repeat. I was anxious all the time, afraid of everything. But here I have purpose. Here I matter. So yes, let's make this home. Taemin was last. He thought about his warehouse job, his small apartment, his quiet life. Nothing special, nothing memorable. But here, on this alien world, he was helping keep 6 people alive. He was building something. He was important. Let's do it, he said. Let's build a real home. They voted unanimously. They were not waiting for rescue. They were building a life. And somehow, despite having no experience, no training, no advantages except their determination, they believed they could do it. After the meeting, Taemin stood outside and looked at the stars. Somewhere up there was Earth. Somewhere were the people he had known, the life he had left behind. But that life felt like a dream now, distant and unreal. This alien world, with its purple sky and glowing forests and dangerous creatures, this was real. This was home now, and somehow that was okay. 3 months had passed since the crash, and the camp looked nothing like it had in those first desperate days. Real shelters stood where crude lean-tos had been. Each person had their own small dwelling, built from salvaged pod metal and local materials. The shelters had roofs made from large leaves that Minji had discovered were naturally waterproof. They had woven walls from dried vines. It was not Earth architecture, but it was sturdy and comfortable. Taman stood at the edge of the camp and looked at what they had built. A garden grew in cleared ground, tiny earth vegetables from seeds they had found in the emergency rations, growing alongside cultivated alien plants. The purple berries they had first discovered now grew in neat rows. Minji had found 3 other edible plants, including a root vegetable that tasted like potatoes mixed with sweet melon. The perimeter was protected by their light frequency system. Glowing minerals placed at specific intervals, each color chosen to repel or attract certain animals. Blue minerals kept the large predators away. Orange attracted the small 6-legged creatures that they had learned to think of as gatherers, harmless animals that actually helped by eating pests that damaged the garden. Doyun had built a workshop. It was just a covered area with a workbench, but to him, it was a laboratory. He had rigged solar panels from the crashed pods to charge their remaining batteries. He was currently working on a communication device, though he admitted it was more hope than engineering. "Morning," Nari said, walking up beside Taman. She had changed the most over 3 months. The scared young woman from the crash had become confident, strong. She was their chief scout now, venturing further from camp than anyone else, mapping the area, finding resources. "Morning," Taman replied. "You're going out again today?" "To the lake," Nari said. "I want to see if those fish things are edible. The ones with the silver scales. Be careful. Always am." She grinned and headed out, carrying a spear they had made from a straight branch and sharpened stone. None of them had known how to make weapons 3 months ago. Now they made them without thinking about it. Adaptation Taman's own role had solidified. He was the organizer, the planner. He created work schedules, managed resources, made sure everyone had tasks. It was not so different from his warehouse job, except here the stakes were life and death. People depended on his organization skills. That felt good. Bora emerged from her shelter carrying her medical kit. Over 3 months she had become their doctor by necessity and study. She had read the medical manual so many times she had it memorized. She had treated cuts, burns, a sprained ankle, and one scary allergic reaction when Hyun touched a plant they had not tested yet. Her hands no longer shook when she worked. Her anxiety had not disappeared, but she had learned to channel it into careful preparation and attention to detail. "How's the patient?" Taman asked. "Hyun's rash is almost gone," Bora said. "Another 2 days and he'll be fine. I still can't believe we don't have proper antihistamines left. We need to find plant alternatives." "Add it to the list," Taman said. The list of things they needed was long. The list of things they had accomplished was longer. They had shelter, food, water, basic medicine, and safety. They had routines and roles. They had purpose. Hyun appeared, looking much better than he had a week ago. The rash on his arms was fading. He was their mediator, their diplomat. When Minji and Doyun argued about whether to use precious battery power for his experiments or for food preservation, Hyun negotiated compromises. When Kangmin and Bora disagreed about medical priorities, Hyun listened to both sides and found middle ground. His middle manager skills, useless back on Earth, were valuable here. "Meeting tonight," Hyun announced. "We need to discuss the dry season." They had learned the planet's weather patterns. 3 months of rain, 3 months of dry weather, then repeat. The dry season was coming. They needed to prepare. Minji called everyone for breakfast. She had become an artist at alien cooking. This morning she served fried root vegetables, fermented berries, and a soup made from the fish things that Nari had caught last week. The fish things were safe. Kangmin had tested them carefully and Minji had learned to cook them properly. They tasted like chicken mixed with mushrooms. Strange but good. "This is actually delicious," Doyun said, surprised every time. "I'm a chef," Minji reminded him. "I can make anything taste good, even alien food." After breakfast, everyone went to their tasks. Kangmin tended the garden. At 52, he was the oldest, but he was also the most patient. He talked to the plants while he worked, telling them stories about his grandchildren back on Earth. Did it help the plants grow? Probably not. But it helped Kangmin, and that mattered. Doyun disappeared into his workshop. The communication device was his obsession. Taman checked on him around midday and found him surrounded by scavenged parts, looking frustrated. "Still not working?" Taman asked. "The theory is sound," Doyun said, pushing his repaired glasses up. "Minji had fixed them using plant resin as glue, but I can't generate enough power to send a signal strong enough to reach another system. Even with all our solar panels working perfectly, it's not enough." You'll figure it out, Taman said. You always do. Doyen smiled weakly. You know what's funny? Back on Earth, I was just an IT guy. I fixed computers and reset passwords. Now I'm building communication devices from crashed spaceship parts. Who would have thought? We all became things we never imagined, Taman said. That afternoon, Nari returned from the lake with news. She had found something, a crashed probe, old and covered in rust-colored vegetation but clearly human-made. Everyone gathered as she described what she had found. The probe was ancient, probably 80 years old, from before faster-than-light travel, but it was intact enough that Doyen might be able to access its data core. I'm going to check it out tomorrow, Doyen said, excitement clear in his voice. If I can get to its memory, we might learn something about this planet. The next day, Doyen and Nari went to the lake together. They worked carefully excavating the probe from decades of growth. Its casing was corroded, but the internal systems were sealed and protected. Doyen connected his homemade tools to the probe's data port. After an hour of work, lights flickered on. The probe's AI awakened. Greetings, a mechanical voice said. This is Survey Probe Delta 7. Mission status, incomplete. Primary systems failed. Secondary systems operational. What information do you have about this planet? Doyen asked. The probe's AI displayed data on its small, cracked screen. Geological surveys, weather patterns, local flora and fauna, and a warning. Planet designation hostile class 3 not suitable for human colonization. Reason, dangerous fauna, unpredictable weather patterns. Seasonal storms classified as category 5 or higher. Next storm season begins in approximately 30 local days. Doyen and Nari looked at each other. Category 5 storms. In 30 days. They rushed back to camp with the probe and its dire warning. That night the meeting was tense. Category 5 storms, Hyun repeated. What does that even mean? Bad, Bora said, reading the probe's data. Winds strong enough to knock down trees. Lightning strikes. Rain so heavy you can't breathe in it. It lasts for days. Everything we've built could be destroyed, Minji said quietly. Then we build stronger, Taman said. We prepare. We have 30 days. That's not enough time, Bora protested. It's what we have, Kangman said. So we use it. They planned through the night. They would need to move supplies to the cave system near the ruins. The caves would provide natural shelter. They would need to protect the garden, secure their tools, preserve as much food as possible. They would need to work together every day to be ready. The next morning they started. Everyone worked harder than they ever had. Taman organized shifts and tasks. Nari scouted the caves and found the safest, deepest chambers. Doyen installed lights and created a battery system to keep them powered. Minji harvested and preserved everything from the garden. Kangman built supports for young plants. Bora inventoried all their supplies and made lists of what to move first. Hyun kept everyone focused and resolved conflicts when stress made people snap at each other. But it was too much work, too much to do. Arguments started. Minji and Taman disagreed about priorities. Should they focus on food preservation or shelter reinforcement? Bora had a panic attack when she realized they might lose everything. Hyun injured his shoulder carrying heavy loads. Exhaustion made everyone irritable. One evening, 5 days before the projected storm, Nari sat outside the camp and cried. Taman found her there. We're not going to make it, she said. We can't prepare in time. Everything we built will be destroyed. Taman sat beside her. Maybe some of it will be destroyed. Maybe a lot of it. But we'll survive. And if we survive, we can rebuild. Why? Nari asked. Why rebuild just to have it destroyed again? Because that's what humans do, Taman said. We build. Things get destroyed. We build again. That's not weakness. That's strength. Nari wiped her eyes. You really believe that?
I have to, Taman said.
What else is there? The next morning, something changed. The arguing stopped. Everyone worked with quiet determination, not talking about success or failure, just doing the work because it needed to be done. They moved supplies into the caves. They reinforced structures. The storm hit like a physical force. Wind screamed through the alien forest, bending trees that had stood for decades. Rain came down in sheets so thick it was like being underwater. Lightning turned the green sky white again and again with thunder that shook the ground. The 7 survivors huddled in the deepest cave chamber. They had moved everything essential: food, water, medical supplies, tools. The glowing minerals provided light, casting strange shadows on the cave walls. Outside, they could hear trees cracking and falling. They could hear the roar of wind and rain. They could hear their camp being destroyed. Nobody spoke. There was nothing to say. Bora sat with her arms around her knees, breathing in the careful rhythm she had taught herself to manage panic. Nari held Minji's hand. Hyun kept checking on everyone, making sure they were okay, even though there was nothing any of them could do except wait. Doyen stared at his broken communication device, which had been damaged during the move to the caves. Kangmin told stories in a quiet voice, talking about anything except the storm. Taemin counted supplies in his head, over and over. It was the only thing that calmed him. They had enough food for 2 weeks. Enough water for 3 weeks if they were careful. The medical kit was intact. They had shelter in the caves. They would survive this. The storm lasted 6 days. 6 days of wind and rain and lightning. 6 days of wondering if the cave would flood, if the entrance would collapse, if the storm would ever end. They took turns sleeping. They ate small meals to conserve food. They told stories and sang songs and did anything to keep their minds off the sound of their world being torn apart outside. On the 3rd day, water began seeping into the cave. Not much, just a trickle, but it was growing. Hyun and Taemin worked together to dig channels that diverted the water away from their shelter area and toward a lower chamber. It worked, barely. The cave stayed dry enough. On the 4th day, Nari had a breakdown. She screamed at everyone about stupid things, about how Doyen was sitting too close to the supplies, about how Minji's breathing was too loud, about how they were all going to die in this cave. Then she collapsed and cried. Bora held her while everyone pretended not to notice. Stress broke people in strange ways. On the 6th day, the storm stopped. The silence was shocking. They waited an hour, afraid it might start again. Then they carefully, slowly emerged from the caves into daylight. The destruction was total. Their camp was gone. The shelters they had built with such care were reduced to twisted metal and scattered debris. The garden was flooded and destroyed with only a few stubborn plants still standing. Trees had fallen everywhere. The landscape looked alien in a new way, raw and broken and wounded. Minji started crying. Kangmin sat down heavily on a fallen tree. Hyun just stared at the destruction, his face blank. Doyen laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Nari walked through the wreckage, touching pieces of their former life. 3 months of work, she said. Gone. Taemin stood in what used to be the center of camp and felt something break inside him. He had tried so hard. They all had. They had built something from nothing, and now it was nothing again. We start over, Bora said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood straighter than before, her face calm. We start over, she repeated. We survived. That's what matters. Buildings can be rebuilt. Gardens can be replanted. We're alive. 7 people who had no business surviving on an alien planet and were still alive. She's right, Kangmin said, standing up. I didn't survive this storm just to give up now. Slowly, one by one, they agreed. They had survived the crash. They had survived 3 months of learning an alien world. They had survived a storm that would have killed them if they had not prepared. They could survive rebuilding. They started immediately. Using salvaged materials and new materials from the storm, fallen trees, exposed stones, new plants washed down from higher elevations, they began to build again. This time they built smarter. They had learned from their mistakes. The new shelters were lower to the ground, more aerodynamic, anchored more deeply. They built storm shelters near the caves for the next time. They created redundant food storage so one flood could not destroy everything. They used their 3 months of experience to build better, stronger, more resilient. Doyen discovered that the storm had exposed new mineral deposits. Some of these minerals conducted electricity better than the ones they had been using. He could finally generate enough power for his communication device. He worked day and night, driven by new hope. Minji found that the storm had brought new species of plants from other areas of the planet. Some were edible, some were useful in other ways. She experimented carefully, using all her chef's knowledge and all her caution. The food supply actually became more diverse after the storm. Nari explored the changed landscape and found that the flood had created new water sources. A spring now flowed where dry ground had been before. Clean, fresh water, easier to access than the lake. Hyun mediated less now because everyone was too tired to argue. They just worked. But he found other ways to help. Encouraging people when they felt discouraged, celebrating small victories. reminding them why they were doing this. Kangmin's garden had been destroyed, but he started a new one with a smile on his face. Plants grow, he said. That's what they do. We just have to give them a chance. Bora had become truly confident. The girl who had panic attacks in the crashed pod was now the person everyone turned to in medical emergencies. She had treated injuries from the storm, cuts, bruises, one case of mild hypothermia. Her hands were steady. Her voice was calm. Taman realized that leading was not about having all the answers. It was about trusting people to find answers together. He stopped trying to organize everything and started asking for input. The camp became a collaborative effort instead of following his warehouse-style management. It worked better. 2 months after the storm, the new camp was not just rebuilt, it was better, stronger, more efficient, more comfortable. They had learned. They had adapted. They had survived. One evening, Doyen called everyone to his workshop. His hands were shaking with excitement. It works, he said. The communication device works. I sent a signal, and I got a response. Everyone froze. A response. From humans. From civilization. From home. What did they say? Nari asked. Doyen played the message. A calm voice spoke through static. This is the colony ship New Hope. We received your distress signal. We are 3 months away. Please confirm your status and location. 3 months. Rescue was 3 months away. They had done it. They had survived long enough to be rescued. But as everyone celebrated, Taman felt strange. Rescue should make him happy. It did make him happy, but also sad. He looked around at the camp they had built, at the people who had become his family, at this alien world that had tried to kill them and had instead become home. That night they discussed what rescue meant. Would they leave immediately? Would they stay? What about the camp? I'm going back to Earth, Minji said. I want to see my family. I want to eat real Earth food. I want to sleep in a bed that doesn't have rocks under it. I'm staying, Kangmin said. Everyone stared at him. What, I'm 52. Back on Earth, I was just a retired postal worker waiting to die. Here I'm building something, I matter. I'm staying, the debate continued. Hyun wanted to see his children. Nari wanted to tell their story. Doyen wanted access to real tools and equipment. Bora was unsure. Taman did not know what he wanted. Over the next 3 months, they prepared for the ship's arrival. They also welcomed the idea of new people joining them. If this planet could support 7 survivors, it could support a colony. They began planning for expansion, where to build, how to grow, what to teach newcomers about this world. The day the ship arrived was clear and beautiful. The purple sky was cloudless. The glowing forests sparkled in the sunlight. 7 people stood together and watched the ship descend. The ship's captain was surprised by what she found. We expected to rescue stranded survivors, she said. But you've built a settlement. A functioning, successful settlement. We didn't have a choice, Taman said. We survived or we died. We chose to survive, the captain smiled. You chose to thrive. There's a difference. The ship carried colonists, 50 people looking for a new home, willing to brave this hostile planet because 7 people had proven it was possible. They brought supplies, technology, medicine, tools. They brought news from Earth and other colonies. They brought connection to the wider human civilization. But they also brought respect. Respect for 7 ordinary people who had done something extraordinary. Hyun decided to return to Earth to see his children, with plans to come back. Minji went back to open her bakery, but she promised to return with proper cooking equipment. Nari stayed to be a guide for the new colonists. Doyen stayed to work with real engineers on real communication systems. Bora stayed because she had become a real doctor and wanted to continue helping people. Kangmin stayed because he was already home. Taman stood at the edge of the settlement, no longer a camp but a real settlement, and made his choice. He would stay. This place had made him into someone who mattered, someone who led, someone who built things that lasted. He had come here as a warehouse worker with no special skills. He was leaving as one of the founders of humanity's newest colony, a colony they decided to name New Jinyang.